Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Allison Chaffee with Eureka Therapeutics, and I'm thrilled to be co-hosting this conversation with Dr. Nicole Nunez. Today, we're honored to again be joined by Julie Chessell, a nurse parent and an advocate with the Hepatoblastoma Resource Network. Please feel free to put your questions in the chat and we will get to them at the end of the webinar. Last webinar we spoke with Julie was for HB Awareness Month. We learned about her son, Brock, his diagnosis, his life-saving liver transplant story, and we even got to meet both of them in person at the Pediatric Liver Tumor Conference in June, where Eureka hosted a sponsored dinner for the patients and families in attendance. We'll be focusing on life after treatment and learn more about what they are doing today in life after glioblastoma. So first, let's start with, how are you and Brock doing? What's new?
Hi, everybody. Well, thank you so much to both of you for having us back. Brock's not here, but us in general. I'm so grateful that we're back to talk, right? Because there was so much we didn't get to, and there's so much we could talk about probably for another 5 webinars. But thanks again. I just wanted to say that. So how is Brock doing? Well, you met him in June. He is a lively teenage boy. He's 19 and he actually just went back to university. So September, he was able to go back to school and he actually made the varsity baseball team this year for his university. So he was very excited about that. Yeah. So you met him in June. You saw he is passionate about speaking, a little shy maybe at first, but once he settles in, he just flows. He's not so much a scripted guy. He's more of a let's talk one-to-one or give me a question and I am able to do that. So that's really awesome. So he's back to school. And, it's a little bit different when they're home for a couple of months in the summer and then back to independence. So he's back to managing his medications again. He's back to managing his day-to-day health. And we're still going for every 3-month visits. So when we were chatting before, we had just kind of transitioned in the last year to adult care, and that continues to go on. But he's doing really well right at the moment.
Oh, that's great to hear. Yeah, I do know too, like when we when we were talking and stuff at the conference, you mentioned too, like there were some other things like, he was having some other hospital visits and stuff, just checking up on some things, make sure. So, so far it sounds like everything's going okay. And there, it sounds like doctors are making sure everything's staying in check. And if there's any pain or anything like that, is it, being fairly well managed right now?
So actually, we're still investigating.
Okay.
He has had, and I'm not sure if I elaborated on this in our previous webinar, but he has had 3 diaphragmatic hernias. So when he had his transplant, they had to take part of his diaphragm. So the diaphragm is the muscle that holds all of our organs basically in our body. It's a big, big muscle. It's actually kind of like a big organ, but it's not an organ, big muscle. So with the amount of cancer that he had, they had to take part of his diaphragm out and then shave a good portion on the right side. That has left him with a really thin diaphragm, and that means that he's susceptible to holes or pockets of fluid, anything like that. So we are still ongoing with that pain. We're still ongoing with seeing what can be done. He actually has a CAT scan coming up in 2 weeks to see where we're going to go from there. So we've now been in touch with thoracic surgeons in the adult side, not necessarily the pediatric side, although we weren't getting too far in the adult world. So as a mom and a nurse, you kind of know how to navigate. And we have amazing, amazing people at Sick Kids in Toronto still, and I'm so grateful that I'm so involved with them still. So they did a little bit of a push, and then we got to where we needed to be. So it's still investigating. He does have, I'm not sure, a spot on his lung that we're still kind of looking at. So we're looking at whether he has another hole in the diaphragm, which he probably does. Brock is one of those kids that does not want to go to the dentist, the eye doctor, nothing, because it relates to health. right? So he doesn't, if he comes to me with something wrong, he knows that there's something wrong. So he in the spring told me, Mom, I think my hernia is back. So usually when he does that, he knows exactly what's happening in his body. So we're likely looking at another surgery.
Oh, I'm really sorry to hear, another surgery in the future, but I mean, gosh, it just go, I mean, how much advocacy and everything, and just how much, you, mom, nurse, everything, just, keeping an eye and knowing exactly like what what's the best way to go about this to make sure you get care quickly, to make sure you're addressing and that, your voice is heard, your son's voice is heard is just, I mean, that's everything. And
it's tough. He actually had a wrist injury, and I'm pretty sure his wrist was broken from baseball because he goes hard and he goes fast. He doesn't do anything half, right? He's full tilt.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure his wrist was broken back a month ago. And did he go to the emerge? No, he taped his wrist up like it was a cast. Because he didn't want to go to emerge. He knew exactly what was wrong.
Yeah.
And he just taped it up and carried on. That's the kind of kid he is. He's, yeah, whether that's good or bad, it's probably bad. It is a bit disjointed. It looks awful, but what are you going to do? He's 19. And I'm pretty sure it was broken. And I call the aftercare clinics. Do you have an x-ray? Because he's 3 hours from me and I'm not able just to do a hop, skip, and a jump to him. So he's having to manage this. And his management isn't necessarily my management. But when he's sending me pictures of his wrist that's kind of out of displacement, that something's wrong. But again, this kind of gets into our next question that we're going to talk about. How does he live his life? What does he do? Right. And we can delve into that a little bit further.
Julie, if you don't mind me asking, his diaphragm, is that a common side effect from is that common? Were the doctors surprised or not surprised?
So they were surprised. So
were.
Yeah.
Okay.
His tumors were so big. He had multiple tumors around his liver and then up in the plumbing of the liver. I'll just keep that in easy terms, the veins and the different plumbing that flows the blood. The tumors were so big that they had to shave it off because it was all up against the diaphragm. So when he got his first diaphragmatic hernia, we actually didn't know it was a routine cancer scan. And it showed up. So every time that this has been going on, the first time was routine. The second time was a routine MRI. The third time he said there's something wrong. And then now this time will be the fourth. So they're quite surprised. The first time they just sewed it up, the hole. The second time they actually put mesh on it. So mesh is kind of like patching the hole, like you put a patch on your jeans, kind of.
Wow.
And then fortunately enough, Brock grew. He grew quite a bit. And you saw him at the conference. He's 6'3" now.
Yeah.
He's a tall, lanky boy. But because he grew so much in a short amount of time, it was kind of like he caught up from being on chemo. He just kind of shot up. They just sewed the third one. So I'm not sure what's going on, but we'll have to see what the CT shows in 2 weeks.
Just having to navigate this. And I mean, I can't say this enough. I'm so thankful he has you in his court, really, like.
Yeah.
It's a help and a hindrance, he would say.
Yeah, going back to the conference in June, it was interesting to hear that a lot of the kids, they didn't like the label superhero and warrior and the attention at school or friends. And it was because they did overcome this whole journey and this whole experience that not any other kids experiencing around them at their school. And it's so unique. And I found it really interesting that a lot of them didn't want to talk about that, or when they meet someone new, they don't talk about that at all. So they could have friends who have no idea what they went through just a year ago or something. And yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, it's an individual story for all these kids, right? Some of them don't mind that. Some of them really like to embrace that warrior attitude or that warrior persona, the Superman. Maybe they're, 3 years old and they have a cape, and I love that. It's different in different stages as they grow, right? So Brock was diagnosed really late at 12. He didn't really have a chance to kind of wrap his head around things because things moved really quickly. We were very fortunate to be able to have some incredible people in our corner from the sports world. So as you girls know, Brock is a huge sports guy. He played AAA baseball, AAA hockey. He's played varsity baseball now. So we were really fortunate to do some advocating with different, NHL teams and sick kids and things in the state.
Yeah.
So that brought out his story a little bit more. So when those things were happening, he was very into that because he was a little bit younger, right? He's getting to meet Sid Crosby, right? And Phil Kessel, and Mitch Marner is one of his guys. He's very good friends with Rich Clune, who was a Marley in Toronto to the Leafs, now is a coach in Pittsburgh. And, he keeps in contact with all these people, but he's now 19. So he doesn't want that label of the NHL or the MLB cancer kid, right? He wants to be able to do a little bit of a different path. So he is a warrior, 100%. He doesn't squash that if anybody says it, but he doesn't advertise it either. Right. So being 19, he's now into the dating world. He's into living on his own with 5 other guys. Now those 5 other guys know about it.
Wow.
But yeah, because he's had to tell some people, right? Like if somebody is really sick around him, he's got to say, dude, don't cough on me, because he's going to get sick. Or if he's swimming at the beach and he's with new friends, they're obviously going to say, hey, what happened to your stomach? Like, that's a massive scar. So there's certain points that he will say, and he's very nonchalant about it. And I had cancer, and I had a liver transplant, but I'm good, right? So it's kind of, it depends on who he's talking to, what situation he's in, and how comfortable or how good of friends these people are.
Or even their siblings who wanted to even talk more about the journey, or they had a whole nother story of being right there next to their sibling while still living their life. Well, it just, all of it was just very eye-opening that, it's one child going through cancer, but the whole family really goes through this journey as well. It's
right.
Yeah.
And as you probably, you hear in society, right? I have 3 boys. They're all very different, but they grew up in the same house. So Brock had cancer. My oldest ended up going into healthcare. He's a paramedic. So he took what happened and channeled that into his life's career now. My youngest actually has friction about that time with Brock. He still brings up the fact that, Brock, you can't be mean to me just because you had cancer and really was palliative and we almost lost him. He does remember a little bit of that, but he'll still, like even this week, throw it back in his face and say, don't be such a bleep, bleep, bleep to me. Just because you had cancer doesn't mean you can be right? So it's all different perspectives for different people, right? And different ages. So it's tough. It's tough to navigate.
That's a whole, like, this is just this is a whole nother can of worms you opened up. This is, I mean, which is really good because it's these things that aren't really talked about. I'm actually really curious, Julie, like how do you handle situations like, as another mom? I mean, I'm dealing with basic resource fighting and that kind of thing. Like, when you come to stuff like that and you're just like, I mean, how do you navigate that parenting situations like that?
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. Now, my oldest will be a little bit harder on Brock as far as, Brock's wrist is broken. And I'll say to Carter, who's my oldest, will you just text your brother and tell him he's being a donkey and should go to emerge, right? Whereas Brock and Carter are close. So he'll be like, oh, dude, you blah, blah, blah. But then I have the flip side where Rhett, who's now 17, he just turned 17, I'll say, boys, like, what happens when your parents are not, God forbid, here anymore? It's all the three of you. You have to be united. You have to actually just get along. And unfortunately, personalities are different, perceptions are different, and you just have to take it day by day, navigate, encourage positive talk, encourage positive self-image, encourage actually them to talk, right? To you as a parent or to each other. Now, it's a little bit different with boys. They kind of, butt heads, but, I've been known to yell in my day and say, "Wow, boy, seriously, is this what we're keeping doing? Because you're now not 7 and 9 and right, grow up."
Curious, Julie, like, after the conference, I'm just wondering, like how did you and Brock like walk away from like after the conference and that experience, like, interacting with especially like all the different patients and families, the providers, the different experts, like in all the tangential fields from like audiology and everything. And so I'm just curious, like how did you guys walk away from it? For example, like, did you guys feel like more empowered about advocacy? Did you feel more like, oh man, this uncovered some areas where there's a big unmet need for patients that like you were like, oh, so I'm just kind of curious, like, what were some of the things that you guys walked away with that just that have stuck with you since the conference?
Yeah, so you touched on a lot of things. It was an amazing conference. I'm so grateful because I'm part of the network. We kind of planned a little bit of it, but I'm so grateful to learn new things every time. So you come away with new ideas, new hope, new dreams for other patients, and you come away with a positive message. But you also come away with, we need to do more. As you know, hepatoblastoma is not a very researched cancer. It is a very rare cancer in the rare disease world and the rare cancer world. So there's always more that we can do. We got to keep pushing. We got to keep unveiling. We got to keep, money flowing in the direction to find, some type of, not cure, but something that can be a new spark for research and change. But, you learn things about survivorship. And that was a big point too, because Brock is now transferred into adult care. So you have to navigate. It's like not being slammed with a cancer diagnosis all over again, or a transplant all over again, but you're now in the adult world. You're more of a number instead of, oh, you have people from all different walks and disciplines that when you walk in to Sick Kids in Toronto, where we lived, people are like, "Hi, Brock."
Yeah.
You live there and it's home, right? So people knew us as Julie. There's Brock, the ambassador kid. "Oh, hey, I saw you on TV last night. Oh, hey, you were, blah, blah, blah." So now we're navigating a new world in the adult center. And it's not all this warm and fuzzy, childlike space. It's adults, right?
Yeah.
And they want the parents to step right back. And that's hard to do. And we've talked about this. So there's pros and there's lots to unveil. So it's everything encompassing. And I think that's a good thing. You don't want just to come away with like, my work is done. You want to be inspired and sparked to keep going and change what we can change for us, for the kids to come.
I definitely just wanted to say, we touched on a little bit about like walking away feeling like there's more to do and things like that. I did want to like touch base briefly in terms of, some things maybe we walked away with, especially like when it comes to the treatment landscape and things like that. One of the interesting things that I walked away with was hearing, especially from the parents' side, that, because there's no FDA approved treatments for hepatoblastoma, every hospital, you hear standard chemotherapy, but there's really no such thing, right? And so like that was the thing that was very surprising, was that different hospitals will follow different chemotherapy regimens or, different like surgery plus this, plus that, plus radiation and chemo, and then this and that. And so it was very interesting just to hear how different all the approaches are to it. And so it really just goes to show, like, finding like whatever the best institution you can get into really does matter. Having these types of conferences, the International Liver Tumor Conference, that it's so necessary, especially in this field, just given the treatment landscape and the lack of just the lack of FDA approved options that we have. And so I was just kind of curious, like what you thought about that too, Julie, and in terms of, like at the conference, like was there anything like in the landscape that you kind of felt like you walked away with?
I think, as you touched on, it's different from hospital to hospital.
Yeah.
It's different from country to country.
Yeah.
Right. What Brock was treated with was not the same chemo as maybe somebody that lives or was treated in Cincinnati, something like that. So it's different. And as we know, the chemotherapy that kids are getting is old chemo. It's adult chemo dosed down, right? The side effects are incredibly hard on kids.
Yes.
So, I mean, it would be, in a perfect world, it would be great if hepatoblastoma had one standard of care to begin with, right? The same regimen. We need new chemotherapy. We need pharma and bio and government and patients and doctors, everybody working together. So kids don't have to have different regimes of different things. It would be really great if there was just one. You're always going to deviate from a little bit according to how things are moving, shrinking, whatever that may be, whatever stage. But it would be really great if there was a standard of care for hepato across the board, and then kind of go from there. So there's lots of work to do. Like that's just scratching the surface. Like there needs to be a lot more done for kids in the chemotherapy world, period, right?
Yes.
Not giving kids chemo that was made in 1958, right?
Yes.
So there's lots of work to do. That's probably 5 webinars that we could talk about.
Yeah.
But I would love to be a part of that standard of care and look at it from a medical piece, because I am a nurse, so I see different things, right? I see kids that are diagnosed with leukemia and lymphoma, right? Being a nurse. So there's lots of work to do. I think you were just scratching the surface. Yeah. But I'm so hopeful with all these conferences that we're having, because things are getting talked about.
Yeah, thank you so much. I couldn't agree more. Honestly, like that's one of the biggest things, I also like walked away with from the conference, was seeing all of these kids in person and literally seeing what these long-term side effects are from these treatments. I mean, seeing the children with the hearing aids, the children that are still dealing with like gut and digestive issues, or having different types of like issues from that, the fact that they're dealing with like skin reactions, all kinds of things that are just, again, like just not talked about. And I just felt like everyone had a story. Again, I totally agree with you. That's one of the things like Eureka was really focused on when we developed ET-1402 through therapy, is we were trying to make sure that we have something that's efficacious, but also that's going to be safe, and putting in those guardrails to make sure that we can have a treatment regime that works, but is also going to tick those safety boxes and not impact that quality of life. So I just said this has to be a bigger focus for pharmaceutical companies, for biopharmaceutical companies, thinking about the safety piece, not just the efficacy piece. So thank you for touching on that.
You're welcome.
Julie, so what's one thing that you want like the community to know more about, like survivorship in general? Like if there was like one lasting thing about, for children that have who went through cancer and those families and everything, like, what's something maybe that you would like to share with them about what life in survivorship is like, and what you'd like them to know?
So I think that's a really, you have to be careful with that, because survivorship can be 2 months. Survivorship can be 20 years. So everybody's at different stages. So I would say I have to be really careful about painting a picture that is all beds of roses and a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, because not everybody gets that. But there is light at the end of the tunnel for some kids. And survivorship is longevity. When you're in the cancer world, and I think I've said this to you before, everybody comes up to you after you're cured.
The
as
bell, yeah.
Cured, ring the bell
Yeah.
and say, wow, I'm just so glad you're done. And my response to that is, you're never done. You're never done. Just because you may not have cancerous cells that can be seen doesn't mean that your kidneys aren't going to fail, that your hearing isn't going to go, that you're now 19 and having to have echocardiograms every 6 months because your tropes are up, or whatever that looks like for you. I mean, I think I would just say, take it day by day. And whether that's 2 months that you have longevity, or 20 years, or hopefully 100 years, I would say you're never done, but try and live each day to the fullest. Reach out to people for support and guidance, and push. And I think I said that at the last webinar too. Be a parent that will push. The squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Yes.
And if you feel like there's something wrong, please keep pushing, because your child is worth it.
Beautifully said, Julie. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you for sharing Brock's story and updating us about life and what's going on with you guys. And yeah, it's always good to hear from you, and we hope to chat with you again soon, and more stories and more what you're going to be headed out to more conferences and what you're going to bring back from those.
Yeah, I'm actually headed to Amsterdam tomorrow, so
Yeah.
I'm there for a little over a week, and I'm at an international conference about pediatric cancer and speaking there. So that's exciting.
Yeah.
That is, yeah. We look
Yay,
forward to
awesome.
hearing that.
Yeah. Best of luck to you, Julie. Thank you so much again.
Thank you.